Welcome, warriors.
Yeah.
I love that you always try to match whatever I've surprised you with that day.
You set the tone, and then it's like, yeah, you set the volley, you hit the ball. It's like, am I gonna strike it out? I'm gonna say sports words now. Am I gonna hit a
I'm gonna be
base?
disassociating
Am
then.
I touchdowning? No. But am I gonna volley it
Touchdowning.
back? Am I gonna hit the ball back?
That's true. I guess it would be
Yeah.
really weird if you like whispered it or you were like, "Hey."
Yeah, you're like warriors, and I'm like, hi guys.
You're like,
Hey
"Yeah, what's up? I'm
gals. Hey
so glad to
y'all.
be here."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, warriors. We are hitting another milestone today.
Yes.
We've hit a few random
Yes.
random milestones. Some of them have to do with like how many seasons we've had or how many
Mm-hmm.
guests. Um, and this one's a big number. This
Yes.
number crazy. 150 episodes today.
Yes. Yep. This
What?
is our 150th episode in our fourth season.
Oh my God, it is our fourth season. I'm like, wait, what? And
Yeah.
it's like, oh wait, it is our fourth season. It's 2024 now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, time is literally flying. It just does
Yeah.
not feel like this many years have gone by.
No, no,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
It's it's really weird.
Yeah. But our like anniversary is in like May.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So,
Which is, I mean, it just feels like this. I mean, Kezzy, you and I both have talked many times about how we both think in the school year terms so often.
mm-hmm.
And so, like, the fact that we're already in February, still the beginning of February, but it's just like, before you know it, it's spring and then it's getting
Mm-hmm.
warm. I think it's just that my brain wants to think about warmer temps and like summer approaching, but it just feels like the school year is flying. All of it just feels really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. In Colorado, they get out in May. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like then it's like crazy. It's crazy. It's like just a few months away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so warriors, we are just really grateful to everyone listening right now, everyone that's been hanging out with us for literal years at this point, for so many
Mm-hmm.
seasons. And I think was it in at the end of our season one finale when we talked about how few people make it past a certain few episodes when they start podcasting for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know which episode we talked about it in,
But we
but
did talk about it.
yeah. Yeah. The typical thing is people don't usually make it. It's like what, 1% of podcasts make it past 10 episodes.
Wow.
Which is crazy because just think about how many podcasts there are out there.
True.
There's a
Well, so I'm
lot.
guessing unless you're getting paid for your podcast, that
Mm-hmm.
then maybe, you're you're getting paid. It's your job. It's like
Yeah.
a physical, your actual job, or it's part of your job. And so it
Wait, I have
makes
a
sense.
question for you.
Yeah.
So, if you had started a podcast and you didn't have a co-host, how many do you think you would have done?
I
Pretending
mean,
that you can
probably
edit
zero.
and
I don't
pretending
think I
all
would
the
start a
other.
podcast. I don't think that if when we talked about creating Anxiety Warriors podcast
Yeah.
wasn't like a collaborative thought process,
Yeah.
I genuinely don't think it'd be any episodes.
Yeah. I mean,
None.
I might have tried for a few, but I really think the reason we've made it so far is right. And we don't have markers. We're not like, oh my God, we got to make it to 50. Now we have to make it to like, we just show up and do it because we're supporting each other as opposed to like,
Mhm.
if I was by myself, like I might have tried for 3 and then been like, okay, I'm done. Like, what am I
Yeah,
doing?
it's like you're missing the accountability. I'm
Yes.
guessing the passion would feel different, or the drive, or the for all, well, for me, the drive, the passion, the excitement
Mm-hmm.
about it, I think would feel really different. And truth be told, I don't listen to any, now that I'm just thinking, because we were just talking before we hit record about, listening to podcasts or whatever. And I don't think I don't have a single podcast that I listen to that has one person. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
either co-hosts or there's like the main host and like their sidekick
Mm-hmm.
person, or they talk a lot to their producers that are kind of like part of the show but not. So like they
Mm-hmm.
have mics, and they chime in here and there. And so it's like they're alone, but they're not. But yeah, I can't think of and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
So I can't think of a single one where it's just one person talking all the time. And some of them have guests. And so, like,
Right.
all right, they're not really alone all the time. But then others I've heard randomly, right? I know some people we follow on Instagram that host podcasts totally alone with
Right.
no guests. And
Right.
it's just them talking into the void,
Yeah.
basically. And it's, which is honestly, I have a lot of respect for that. It's a lot
Yeah.
of, I don't know,
Some
that's something.
confidence, bravery,
Yeah.
something.
Drive,
Drive.
right?
Yeah. Especially because, I mean, out of the 1% of podcasts that make it past 10 episodes, how many are actually making any money? I feel like that's got to be like
Or
point
like real
oh
money.
0.01. Yeah. Right.
Probably.
Right. Where it's
Probably.
like
Yeah.
considered a job.
Yep. Right. Where they
Mhm.
can just live their lives making a podcast.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. That's
100%. Yeah. I
like
have
for the
no idea.
celebrities. So you have
Exactly.
to be a celebrity and then start a podcast. And that's the
People that
only.
have millions of followers before they start
Yes.
podcasting. Yeah.
Right.
Totes.
Yeah.
Totes. So what feels like why does this number feel like, because like when you were talking before about like we weren't doing this to hit milestones or whatever, I felt a little like niggle at my heart. I'm like, I actually do have some light attachment issues with numbers. So like if you and
Yes.
I were to stop podcasting at like 173, I'd be like,
That feels weird.
that
Yeah.
doesn't feel good to
Yeah.
me. It feels like we should stop at like a different number. Like
175.
175. Yeah,
Yeah.
exact. Which
Yeah.
is so silly, right? If you think about it. But at the same time, that's just my own codependence with
That's,
them.
yeah. No, things need to work out. They need to feel like they ended on the right number. But
Right?
when I was saying the number thing, I meant like we weren't like telling each other, okay, I mean, I think we said we got to do past 10. I think like at the very beginning, we were
Maybe.
like,
Yeah.
we got to beat all those other suckers out, right? Like
That sounds right. Yep. That sounds right.
but then after that, I don't think we ever said this is how many we want to make it to. It was like it just kind of came. Like all the numbers
Yeah.
came naturally, like 50, 100. Like I don't think we even
Right.
yeah, like so it
We
meant I
do
meant it.
celebrate every 50, it seems. I do.
Yeah, so
Now that
maybe
we're,
that's our thing.
that's the thing. Right.
The
And so
unspoken number.
you'll have us warriors for at least another 50
Yeah,
podcasts.
right. When we make it to 200.
And then we'll see, right? Right. Every
Yeah.
50 we'll reconnect on what's happening with us and what's going on with the pod.
Yeah. I like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like it.
So what have been some highlights for you in our 150 episodes?
Such a heavy question. Not heavy like in like the, oh God, my heart's sad. Like it's like heavy in terms of like there are so many things I could share
Yeah.
in terms of highlights. I guess the first one is just making it into the top. Every time we say top 1%, I think I want to talk in a Bernie Sanders voice.
Do it. Do
1%.
it.
I'm terrible at it. The top 1% of podcasts. Oh God, that is enough of that. So aside from that, like mini win, Abby's still crying over here. Oh man, we need to take a hot five. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe in
I'm
5 seconds.
crying. I am crying. Okay. That's so
So
good.
it's proud. It's a proud thing, right? Getting past that. And so I think that's probably up there in terms of the highlights. But the real highlights are just the joy that I've felt in my heart, talking to you nearly every week. And we've had an episode every week in all of these seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we've had a handful of replays that we've done,
Under
over the
10.
past under 10 replays, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
amazing. So we've had
And
so many episodes of just you
we
and me, so many talking to guests.
mm-hmm.
It just feels like, and I have a different level of excitement when I'm going to be connecting with just you and me.
Yeah.
And when I know we're going to be talking to someone, and
Yeah.
especially if it's going to be somebody that like you or I or both of us sort of know a little bit, or we've gotten to know, or we
Mm-hmm.
felt inspired by them on, say, Instagram or whatever. And so I like the sort of anticipation that I feel, like that sort of buzzy anxiety energy that I feel every time I
Mm-hmm.
sit down here in front of this microphone and click on our meeting link and see either you and our guest. And it's just exciting to hear anxiety stories from you, from
Yes.
all of the awesome people that have chosen to take precious time out of their extremely valuable life
Mm-hmm.
um
To share a vulnerable
hang out with
story.
us
Like,
and be vulnerable. Exactly. And just, I've learned so much about anxiety. I've learned so much
Mhm.
about who I am, who I want to be, what I'm working on, what I'm trying to
Mhm.
practice, where I'm relapsing in some areas of my anxiety journey. And it's just, I think overall, the number one highlight I'm going to say is just that I feel like overall my mental health has improved greatly. My
Yes.
relationship to my anxiety was always um a complicated one,
Mm-hmm.
still is. I think it'll forevermore be that. But when you and I started thinking about doing this and then doing it, we had both come to this like empowered place about it, right? We're
Yes.
like, not only do we want to talk about mental health, do we want to talk about something that we've been dealing with for our whole lives, but we want to do it um, out loud to anyone that would listen, and then invite other people in on that and share out
Mm-hmm.
loud to anyone that would listen about their experience with it, just so we can feel a little less alone, so we can have our experience heard and validated, and so we can have some tidbits of advice given out, active practices, things that have helped us without being preachy or here's what you got to do in order to feel better. None of that bullshit. And it's just felt like an empowering journey. Yeah. So I think that those are my highlights.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really like the part you just said. I liked everything you said. And I really liked how you ended with like, we share active practices, but like we leave space for everyone to figure it out themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel really proud that that was the choice that we made when we talked about the podcast. Like we were not going to put the expert hat on, and we're experts with our anxiety to an extent, right?
Yeah, sure.
And we have the
Right.
things that work for us, and we could have like there's been so many times where we've gotten emails for like someone that's a psychologist that wants to join us on, and someone that does, I don't know, what's it called? Like the mushroom
Mm-hmm.
ketamine crap, whatever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we've had so many random like people like that we don't know reach out because they want to speak to our audience about all the ways that you can cure and end anxiety.
Right.
Right. And so our podcast could have been very different. And
That's true.
I do really appreciate that you ended with the fact that like, yeah, we just share our experience, we normalize our experience, we share what's helped us, but it doesn't mean it's going to help everyone. I just think that is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that, I just want to say too, it's not that we don't value what folks are trying to, teach or offer, right? It's just not, it's
Mm-hmm.
not in line with who we are running this podcast, right? And so
Correct.
like have your beliefs, hopefully some research right behind whatever it is you're out there trying to sell or, offer to folks. We can only hope it comes from a place of true well-meaning and, hopefully some evidence-based supported ideas. Not everything does. And so even we could argue, right, with them all we want about what if we believe what they're trying to sell is true or helpful or whatever. But that again, that was never the point. And so it was just like,
Right.
hey, cool, good for you, but that's unfortunately not a good fit for our show. That's not what we're
Mm-hmm.
about.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What are some of the highlights aside from you sharing on that one as well?
Um, I mean, it's pretty much everything you said, right? Like Wednesdays are exciting. I'm connecting with Margot, right? Like, I clean up my room a little bit so it looks a little more tidy, and then and then I get on the computer and we connect and we get to chat for a bit before we do this. And then the connecting with all the people, right? So I've appreciated the people we know well, like Lauren and Raina, right? Well, I know them well. You know them well too, but there's other
Sure.
people like Drew well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like all the different people that we know well that have come on and shared their stories and things like I never knew, right? Like it doesn't matter how close you are with someone, there's always
Hmm.
stuff you don't know about them.
Yeah.
And then also the people that only you knew that all of a sudden I'm meeting for the first time, like Drew. I'll just keep saying Drew. Drew was awesome, right? Drew is awesome. And then also just like all the people both of us didn't know that we had like this really nice connection with, right? And
Yeah.
so I just really appreciate the community. I really do, because again, anxiety can be so isolating and so lonely. And I think just like what you said at the beginning, like my relationship to my anxiety has transformed through this podcast
Mm-hmm.
because it's so less lonely, right?
Mm.
And I can also take all these, like it still stands in my mind that like Melissa Durker in season end of season 2 talks about anxiety warriors showing up, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm noticing I'm feeling anxiety, like, I'm going to a social event, I'm like, oh, I got social anxiety. I don't want to have small talk, right? Like all those things, right? I'm like, I'm showing up, right? And so I like embody what someone else on our podcast has said. And that's really transformed my experience and my relationship with my anxiety.
Yeah, it's so well said because and thinking more deeply as you were mentioning Melissa Durker, then I'm just having other guests' minds floating around in my mind. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm remembering random tidbits from different guests we've had over the
Mm-hmm.
past, 3+ years, and how they are with me kind of throughout my
Mm-hmm.
day, throughout my anxiety journey, and how things that they've said have really stuck in my heart or in my mind or at different points in my day or in my week if I'm struggling with something. It's just really freaking cool that we can think back to a conversation that we were able to have with somebody here on the show that impacted
Right.
impacted our mental health, right?
Right.
For the
Right.
better, for the
Right.
better.
And I'll just say, like, for all of our guests, right? Again, it was things that worked for them. It was the way they define anxiety warrior, right? So they
Yeah.
weren't like Melissa wasn't like, hey, if you want to fix or cure your anxiety, just show up, right? She was like, for me, an anxiety warrior means to show up. And
Yes.
that stuck with me, or also when we were talking to Becky and she talks about how anxiety is such a shapeshifter, right? And
Hmm.
like I've
Hmm.
known that, like I've had that experience a lot. Like, oh, sometimes my anxiety comes as rage, or sometimes it comes as nervousness. But the way that she talked about it in the shapeshifting way, I had more amusement in my relationship with anxiety, right? So
Mm.
like just all these people like say these things and it's what worked for them, but it also can stick and we can integrate it in a way that works for me, us too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the power of storytelling and just being willing to be open to receive somebody else's truth
Mm-hmm.
with as much listening, right? Just really active listening that we can have.
Yeah.
And we don't have to internalize everything, right? So, like going off of that same thought, our minds can go in the opposite direction. Like there were some things that folks said where I was just like, "Ooh, wow, that really doesn't land for me,"
Yep.
right? And maybe I'm not going to say that to them
Yeah.
because it isn't my story to tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, like once in a while in lightning rounds, like I would jokingly be like, nope, right? Like, hell no to skiing or, whatever. So, usually has to do with snow, but like something that was just very anti who I am. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be things that you hear from people when they share their honest and true experience that don't resonate and don't land. And so while we're always being open and listening and learning about the things that we do want to try or that do feel right for us or whatever, I know speaking honestly, right? There were some conversations where certain things were said and I was just kind of like, "Huh, that's interesting," right? But I don't here's why that strategy is not for me. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling to relate to that part of the story, right? Or and then my brain's fighting for finding the through line and like
Right.
what makes it true for everybody. And it's just that we're all anxious.
Yeah.
That's really the beauty of it, right? Is that it doesn't matter that those strategies don't work for me or that I'm unwilling to try them, even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that such and such experience is so different from mine. It's but we're all here holding the same umbrella and it's anxiety, right? And so
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter how and why we experience it and what we do about it. It just matters that we all deal with it. And that's what connects us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's totally it. And I think that's what we just keep reinforcing is that anxiety is a spectrum, right? If I'm saying I'm feeling anxious, you're going to put your ideas based on your anxious experiences into my thing, right? But the
Mhm.
commonality is anxiety is extremely uncomfortable, right? We would be much happier without it.
Yeah.
We understand how anxiety can cause a lot of suffering, right? But it might show up different for both of us. And so we can hold space for the discomfort without
Mhm.
totally understanding the experience.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Ah, I'm curious what your favorite parts of our episodes are. So like
Ooh,
if
like,
you break down like how we
mm-hmm,
generally have our like bell curve of what's
mm-hmm.
happening in an episode.
Yeah.
Because you and I have our own bell curve when we're talking to a guest, there's its own bell curve, usually based around, our typical questions for folks that come on the show. But like what are some of like the parts of our conversations, either the two of us or with guests, that just like give you the most joy or excitement or maybe even stress you out? Like,
Mm-hmm.
which parts bring you some kind of feeling?
I mean, lightning round always brings me joy. All right, maybe I
Right?
shouldn't say always. I should say almost
Mm,
always. Sometimes if I
interesting.
don't plan ahead of time, right? Like then I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have questions. I don't have questions. Right. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like what are my questions going to be? Or if I don't know how, if I can't get a vibe throughout the conversation of how playful the person is.
Yeah, that's a good
Right?
point.
Like,
That's
so
a good
then I'm
point.
like, oh, let me ask them what their favorite season is. Right? Like, as opposed to make the sound of a kickball. Right? Like,
Right.
so
We see you, Sherry. We
yeah.
know how playful Sherry is.
Yeah, right. We knew we could play with her. Um, so I think that like lightning round often brings joy, but not always. Sometimes I'm like, oh, is this gonna be a good question or not? Is this
Yeah.
are they gonna be in a playful mood or not? Um, so that's definitely been joyful. I just like real conversations, right?
Hmm.
Like we know this, like small talk for me. I like how we just like dive right in and we're like, here's my truth. Here's my experience. Or our guests say the same thing. Here's my truth. Here's my experience. And it just takes it to a level where I feel like we can all see each other more clearly as the humans we are and not the like masks we wear.
Hmm. That just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, a Rumi quote: "Tear off the mask, your face is glorious."
See?
It's one of my favorite quotes. Yeah.
Rumi understood the shape shifting of
He
anxiety too.
understood pretty much everything. Deep levels of understanding.
What
Yeah.
about you?
I mean,
Joy.
yeah, my feelings are always that, yeah, well, it's funny because lightning round ultimately always winds up feeling like the most fun. I'm always the most excited for lightning round because even when we've had generally lighthearted conversations with guests, and we've had so many lighthearted conversations about heavy, weighty shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's just something that I feel is so special about the end when we just ask these random questions, because typically they're completely unrelated to the experience of anxiety, and they're sometimes deeply personal, or they're so silly, or they're so far out of left field. And we do get to have that moment of true levity, right, at the end, and ending on a high note in a way, I think. So I think that's always a highlight for me. When it's just you and me, I like a lot of like our silly shiitake
Yes.
conversation at the very beginning of an episode. I like how often, one of us is just like in tears laughing and then you have to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
or like, and to be I was going to say TBH, like really Instagram language. To be honest, I also feel like when we have those moments where it's like, you know what, I don't want to have said that and I need you to cut it out, or you make a note for yourself, like I'm cutting that out, or
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and try that again. Because to me, it doesn't feel dishonest. I feel like for the most part, we're still talking completely off the cuff with very little. I mean, I shouldn't say very little prep. There's prep. There's a lot of conversations ahead of time about what we're talking about and why. And we each think about which stories we're going to be sharing based on that topic and whatever. And um, but then for the most part, it's just that our relationship is such that we can have just a free flowing conversation,
Right.
that it doesn't feel like work at all. And
Yeah.
so it just feels like fun and connecting with you. Um, but when we do have those moments where it's like, take that out, I always do feel randomly a little pit in my stomach. It's like, are we being inauthentic? And it happens so
Ah,
infrequently,
yeah.
but still, I think that's why it brings me such discomfort because it happens so
Mm,
infrequently. I'm like, wait, but I did say that, and why should I take it out? And why? And then I'm overthinking a little bit. I'm like, why do I feel like I need to take that out? Or like, we'll get off the call, and later that night, it'll pop up in my brain what I said or what, or
mm-hmm.
what I wish I should have said or whatever. And so like those little
Yeah.
things are sometimes what nag at me a little bit about doing it. But so I'm just trying to share like the range of feelings that can come up
Yes.
whenever we record. And the other thing that stresses me out, but I think we've gotten a good rhythm with it, is sharing our recaps and takeaways.
Oh God. Oh
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh
So
my
Warriors,
God.
when you hear us sharing our recap and our takeaways, that is the most one of the some of the most tricky parts of doing this podcast with each other. And
Yeah.
when we're both just our guest leaves and we're both just like, oh God, no, we have to do the part where we summarize, and we both have ADHD, and narrowing down our thoughts is like a fucking nightmare. And
Right.
so it's just, yeah, so just so you know that that's that magic of just like piecing it together that
Yep.
Abby provides for us in all of those guest interview episodes. But so
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of the range of feelings.
I'm glad you brought that up. I hate doing the recap, y'all. I hate it. It stresses me out. How do
It's
you take
stressful.
an hour story, like an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, and turn it into 3 to 4 sentences? Right.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not a marketing person. Like, I don't know how to grab your attention in a 3 to 4 sentence way, Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times like Margot and I are like, all right, we're done. And I'm like, I'll just record it later. And then I like edit the whole thing. And throughout the whole entire editing, I'm like, oh, I'll say that sentence. Or sometimes I take when the people really fill out their forms for email, I'll take what they
Mhm.
wrote in there. If they tell their story close to their fill out, I'm like, okay, great, thanks.
It
Like
makes
that's
it a little
great.
easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just real talk here. It's just real
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
But like I usually wind up when I every Friday when I text you a lot, like, oh, the episode sounded great or whatever. And it feels like I get this buzz of excitement listening to one of the episodes we've recorded or with a guest or whatever, just because it's just like, we made this, we put this out,
Yes.
we were brave, and we fought through our anxiety to put out our honest truths about one topic or another. And it's the same for our
Mm-hmm.
guests. And I just have this like Christmas morning kind of excitement sometimes listening to our conversations again, because sometimes they come out weeks after we
Yeah.
had them. Um, but so I think it's just I'm not really sure how I want to wrap up this part of our chat, but it's
Yeah.
just I think it's important that we highlight that everything we do comes from a place of love and passion and excitement and hopefulness, right, for the future
Mm-hmm.
of continuing the conversation about anxiety and mental health.
Yeah.
And we hope that we're doing it in a way that feels authentic to us and that hopefully brings you some lightness and joy in addition to some opportunities for reflection on what's going on with you.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
maybe you come away with an active practice or two every once in a while
Mm-hmm.
that you can bring into your own journey, into your day, into your life. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Can I
Hmm.
tell you how often Adam will just go, and he's fully Abbying. Like and like it's just become a joke randomly in
Hmm.
the house. I'll like ask him to go do something, whatever. He goes, hmm.
I love it. I love it. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we're famous and people like did our things like or hey warriors? That
Is
was
that
so
supposed to be
bad.
me?
That was you. Yeah. That was
Wow,
kind
we
of
need to
like
work
your
on your
Bernie
impression.
impression.
I would say my lightning, right? Like stuff
Yeah.
like that. Or
Lightning. Yeah. Lightning.
oh man. It's what's crazy to me too is that so many people have been willing to talk to us.
Oh my
Because
God, I know.
when you joke just now about being famous, it's like I literally could never, ever imagine that. I don't think I could live. I don't think I could live as a famous person. Nope.
No, no. I mean, what if we were just like known podcasters, not famous like,
Mm,
you know,
yeah, I still think that'd be really hard.
I
But
mean, I would like a little bit more being known in the podcast so that we could
Sure.
get more known names so that we could keep really shining a light on the conversation, right?
That's
I
true. Yeah.
think that if, Selena Gomez or Ryan Reynolds, who've both spoken about their mental health and that they have
Bill
anxiety,
Hader,
see, right, just
tons of
came on
people.
our podcast and had a chat, I think that that would help a lot of people. And then they would go back and listen to all the other stuff too.
Yeah. And then go ahead and recommend it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ah, all right, warriors. We love you so much. Like, so freaking much. We are so
Mm-hmm.
thankful. There it is. There it is, y'all. We're so thankful that you tune in. We love receiving your emails and your DMs, asking questions about things we talked about, or, asking for Instagram handles for people that we have interviewed, or just sharing how a story that we shared or a guest shared landed for you, or also felt true for you, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or that you were curious about trying out one of the things that one of us or that one of our guests have chat about using in their journey to help them. And it's just a great, it's just such a great thing. And we are super thankful.
Yeah.
150.
Yeah. Woo!
That's our Mabby win of the week.
Win of the
150
week.
win of the week. 150 episodes. And so we hope that if you are new here and you haven't listened to all 150 episodes, or 149 because you're listening to this right now, you should probably scan through and start listening to some ones that you feel like the titles land for you. Read some show notes, check out
Mm-hmm.
some guest bios, follow our Instagram, Anxiety Warriors podcast, and just like find the episodes that you think you might want to back up the train
Yeah.
and check out.
Or the names that we already dropped. Lauren, Raina, Drew,
The
Melissa,
amount of time that you,
Jackie.
yeah, I was gonna say, we we've had so many guests, and yet somehow
Yeah.
my brain's just like, wait, who else have we talked to?
Oh, I could keep going.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And I don't want to keep cherry picking names because all of our guests have
No,
been so
everyone was
freaking
amazing.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. And so generous with their time, and been so different from each other, Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the joyful part too, is that I think when we started is we weren't sure that we would talk to anyone that wasn't a kids yoga teacher or someone that we knew in our life so directly. But then people started reaching out, and then you and
Yep.
I got more brave about reaching out to random people that we thought were interesting on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, somebody shared an episode with another person, and that person said, hey, I loved my listening to my friend's anxiety story. I have experience
Mm-hmm.
with anxiety. Are you interested in hearing my story? And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, cool, let's do
Right.
this. And so I think that's the way we've kind of been able to spider web out our community, has been very cool to
Mm-hmm.
see.
Agreed.
Very cool. All right, so beep 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 beep, announcement time.
Beep, 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 beep,
That was
beep.
my like
Oh, that was
the
good.
1950s like broadcast.
That was good.
Beep beep
I
beep
felt
beep
like
beep
I
beep
was
beep.
there
Right?
in the 50s.
Announcement. Morning announcements, or like what, like the in school announcements. It's like
Bum, bum, bum. Something like that,
like
right?
Grease. That was very Grease.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
Bum
of.
bum bum. Or just a tone, just bum.
Mm.
Good morning, children. So we have an announcement to make. It's been only a few episodes of our season 4. And we've
Yes.
been able to put out an episode every week. But stuff's busy. We are
Yeah.
busy ladies with
Yes.
work and family and doing all the things. And so we decided that instead of putting pressure on ourselves and being hard on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that we would take it down a notch a little bit this season and see how that feels for us
Mm-hmm.
energetically and emotionally, I think. Because while we love doing this so much and we're excited to keep doing it, uh, sometimes we have a hard time connecting on a Wednesday because of work obligations or things that are going on.
Yep.
So we're going to be going down to like 2 episodes a month as opposed
Yes.
to like 4 episodes a month. And so we're going to be operating from now on a bi-weekly new
Mm-hmm.
episode drop schedule. And so we're still going to be in your Instagram feed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Maybe
as
I'll do
far as,
more on Instagram.
there you go. She'll have
Same.
more time because less editing and all
Yes.
that. Yes.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So A little bit more. I mean, we'll still be showing up in your IG feed all the time. But as far as new episode drops, they're going to be bi-weekly going forward.
Yes.
And we're going to see how that feels for us. And we hope that this doesn't bum you out too much. I think we're both a little anxious about sharing that with you. And I'm assuming that no one gives a shit. But that's just my assumption. Although I'm sure that that's not 100% true, because we do have a good amount of like loyal folks that are always DMing us or always talking to us about episodes, which we're so grateful.
Yeah, we love those DMs.
Love them. They really make our hearts soar, truly, honestly. So yeah, we're gonna see how that feels for the next little bit, and feel free to be honest about it. Let us know how you feel about it, you know? And yeah. But we're not leaving ya. We need more episodes. 150 is not enough. It's just
we still have guests that want to come on. People reaching out to us. So
we still have stuff happening in our own lives that we still need to talk about with you all.
Totally.
Right? New stuff happening all the time. So on that note, if you feel like you'd be a great fit as a guest, or if you'd just like to chat with us, shout out any topic ideas you'd love to hear us talk about in this new season, shoot us an email, anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about your wins of the week. We love hearing those too, especially if they're related to, overcoming something as far as your anxiety goes. Take a moment and smash the 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're tuning in right now. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our episodes are uploaded for you over there. And you can hop on into our Threadless merch link. You can get to that in our show notes, or on Instagram. You can get to that in our link in bio. And I think I mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Instagram, Anxiety Warriors Podcast. Follow along, hang out with us, DM us, let us know your thoughts on different episodes. And if you'd like to be on our show or anything, for any reason, we'd love to hear from you and chat with you.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful we get to do this with you all.
Till next time. See you in 2 weeks, y'all.
Woo!
Woo!